Hey guys, this is SeetherCord here, and welcome to our newest video for you guys today. I know some of you noticed I skipped two things from the last video. I'll mention those two in today's video. It was KhramChee's fault.
No, it wasn't!
Anyway, levels 4 and 5 will be a part of today's video, and then we'll view the last two next time. So without further ado, let's begin. Impressive title. The first item on today's list is a dead furry MMORPG. I didn't know about this game up until today when KhramChee told me about it. The game was a Disney-style lion and wolf roleplay simulator. In the beginning, it was planned to be an open world with quests, towns, and expansions, but since it was being created by one person, these expansions stopped and he concentrated more into letting players build their own worlds. The game had a lot of help from its community in the beginning and started to gain popularity after being relaunched as Feral Heart. But Kovu, the creator, had other plans for his life. So he handed the code to his close friends who kept the game's servers running and posted updates and fixes from time to time. If you want to play, Feral Heart is still up and running, though the great majority of its players base has moved on to other games from newer times because this one hasn't gotten any big changes since its release. There was a lot of controversy related to Impressive Title or Feral Heart. Some people wanted Kovu to keep updating it. Others started Kickstarter-like campaigns pretending to be an artist from the original team and scammed people promising a remake. And some even took it upon themselves to make their own and improved animal simulation game. This is where Cereal Soup and Fair.ul come into place. Cereal Soup had a lot of potential, but as of lately, people have been getting disappointed with the lack of progress made in the past 2 years. I think that the game is still quite enjoyable, and they offer variety in terms of customizing your character. Fair.ul, or just Feral, is an amazing role-playing game with a cheerful and quite colorful style. This game is an MMORPG themed around their mythical creatures. While their roster is smaller, they're still very customizable, and you can play it for free on both PC, Mac, and mobile. You should definitely check these out if you enjoy video games where your characters can be a feral animal. That was a handful and we're just on the first one. Moving on. Goons. Alright, this was a new term for both KhramChee and I. Goons is the nickname given to users of the Something Awful forums. They are known to troll gullible people online. Of course, some furries have fallen for these trolls jokes, and there's even a small list of furry goons, which means there are furries who troll other furries for fun. This forum has died slowly over time, and these attacks have become less dangerous online as time went on, so yeah, don't worry guys, goons are nothing to worry about. Soviet furs. While you may think this is a controversial topic, it is actually not. The Soviet Furs was a live journal group created by a very small group of furries who were fans of the Soviet aesthetic per se. However, they did not condone their heinous acts. Most of what this group did was obsess about historical facts, roleplay, write stories, and draw their characters in Soviet-like attire. It mostly seems like a harmless hobby to me. I mean, they are just being nerds about a historical event. So as long as they don't break any boundaries, it's fine by me, I guess. Nationalist furries. Okay. The name sounds like such a big deal, but it really was a very short-lived project made by this one guy named Squirrel, who tried to turn furry into some sort of worldwide nation. This all started in the early 2000s, back when LiveJournal was still a thing. Squirrel used to be quite popular around those times, and the creation of nationalist furries actually sparked some drama. There was a division in the fandom. There were people saying it was a terrible idea and others being fully supportive. People were fighting for days in the comment section of the LiveJournal group Squirrel had created. And in the end, he just got fed up with it, stopped, and decided to put the whole plan in an indefinite hiatus. The group has been dead since. Sally Acorn Skeleton Love Doll. Alright, don't panic before you run and cry because the picture shown on screen looks scary as fuck. Let me clarify that no, the doll you see on screen does not have a real human skeleton inside. This was a project made by an artist on DeviantArt, and this person is a professional sculptor. The artist behind this masterpiece goes by the username Greydendine on DeviantArt and has already explained that they used wood, they sculpted it, and gave it the realistic bone shape. But I'm not going to get into deeper details here. If you'd like to know more about this doll, go check out Wang's video on the matter, or simply visit Greydendine's page on DeviantArt. I'll be leaving the link in the description down below. Greydendine has made several posts over the years detailing the whole process of how this doll came to be, though I can't deny that she looks kind of in the uncanny valley to me. I don't know about you guys. Improved anthropomorphics. Wow, this is something I must read to you from the wiki about it. And quote, Improved Anthropomorphics was a group that believed that the private, personal interests of certain members of the furry fandom provide an inaccurate public representation of the fandom as a whole, and that this prevents the fandom from reaching its full artistic and cultural potential. If you thought that this was absurd, let me tell you that the original name that they had used for this group was Burn Furs 2. So, the long story short is, some furries made a group in the mid to late 2000s and decided that it was their job to curate the fandom to choose who was or wasn't worthy of representing us. And just like that, by the early 2010s, this group died because no one cared about their opinions. God Hates Furries. This one used to be a website, godhatesfurries.com. It used to post links, pictures, and drawings made by furries and left a message below criticizing them. The thing about this website, though, is that no one really knows whether or not its purpose was really critical or to be fully satirical, since some posts seemed more serious than others. I would personally take it as ironic. Sadly, I can't show you anything about this one because it has been down for years, but if you'd like to visit the archives of it, there are still a few available on the Wayback Machine. Golden Age of the Furry Fandom. Alright, this is connected to the first group of burnt furs and the alike. The phrase Golden Age of Furry Fandom was used by the people who said that everything was better in the past, that everything related to the fandom was better when it was smaller and just a few people knew about it. They mostly criticized everything new and different from their ideals, especially the LGBT community, Christian furries. Genesius quit the fandom though. Next one. Fur speech. Sadly, most of the terms and phrases that we are trying to explain from this iceberg have either been deleted, disappeared, or just stopped being used by the people in the fandom. Fur speech is part of those dead things. While it is used, people don't call the words used in the furry context fur speech nor fur talk, like the people from the early 2000s expected us to. We just kind of use the words themselves, but don't care to give this slang a name. But hey, let's explore it anyway. Fur speech was the name suggested by a furry writer known as Wanderer. It refers to the words made up and used in the fandom. Majority of fur speech consists of alterations of existing words into new ones to be used inside the fandom. Here's a list of a few examples. Fursona, befur, perfect, furtastic, facepaw, baked furs. So, when we were doing research on this name, we thought it was going to be just the name given to furries who are fans of cannabis and such. But actually, there's a story behind this. Back in the burnt furs times, this group was created to mock them. It was made with the purpose of parodying these angry, closed-minded individuals, and it worked. But sadly, the group had to change names because furries who were users of these drugs convinced them to do so. There was also another group, named Freezing Furs, created by Duran Foxtail. Though this one was way more serious and made to fight the ideals of the burnt furs, hence the play on words on the group's name. All three groups, Baked Furs, Freezing Furs, and Burnt Furs, are dead nowadays, but you can still find the remaining of them on their abandoned LiveJournal pages. I could even say these work as museums of how the fandom was back then. It's funny, you know, people try to say that the fandom used to be peaceful, when in reality we have always been a bit dramatic, and there's even evidence to back up this claim. Furry muck. It keeps getting more and more old school the further we go. I was kind of expecting it to get creepier, but I feel like we are getting lessons on the history of the furry fandom instead. Alright. MUD stood for Multi-User Dungeon. It's the name given to a specific kind of online text-based role-playing game. They were played back when the internet connection still depended on wired phones to work. The term muck is kind of the updated version of MUDs. It stood for Multi-User Created Kingdom. It allowed players to do more than just play on what others created. Mucks gave players the freedom to talk out of character and also help out with world building. This allowed the player base to have more influence over the world they were playing in. Remember, this was all through text only. No images, only writing, and a lot of imagination. Furries were a part of this trend, even going as far as to creating their own mucks. There's even a few websites still running muck games of all kinds online. Furrymuck.com even praises themselves as the longest standing muck on the internet to date. That was it for level 4. Are you ready for level 5? Let's dive right into that. Eat all furries. While the name would give you the vibe of this one being about vor, it actually was the name of a website that was meant to make fun of furries. I would like to say this was a serious website, but the strange side of this story is the fact that it was created by furries. So I'm not sure if the purpose of it was to criticize what was considered cringy back in the early 2000s, or this whole deal was just a joke that people ended up taking too seriously. I'm doubtful on what side to take because there are stories on the Wikifur page where there are statements of people getting harassed after being mentioned on the site. The creators kept claiming that their purpose was not to be harmful towards the fandom, while at the same time still posting and sharing links to people's pages in the fandom, basically falling back on their word. Funny enough, the story about how their website fell apart is that it was taken down by their own people. One person from within the group was given admin permission and then rapidly proceeded to delete everyone's accounts, and then as the cherry on top, purged the site. People still don't know whether or not the purge was intentional, but it's still an interesting tale. Nazi furs. No, I'm not going to deep dive into the furry raiders. While we thought about these guys while doing the research, it turns out that Nazi furs was a group just like the Soviet furs, created in LiveJournal and centered around the historical events itself. The group was made by furries who shared interest in the history, aesthetic, stories, artwork, and overall were World War II nerds. They always stated clearly that they did not support the Nazis' heinous acts. The group was about a shared interest in just that, nothing else. This group had been dead for years but ended up getting hate many years later because the furry raiders started using their artwork. Their logo design was used on the furry raiders' page, and the artwork they commissioned of their personas. Basically, furry raiders grabbed their logo and claimed it was theirs, which got this dead group in the middle of the fire. The situation was so bad to the point that the LiveJournal Nazi fur group creator had to revive his abandoned account just so that he could write a statement separating the two groups. He had to clarify that the group had no political interest and it was centered around nerds who had fun discussing World War II and liked to roleplay about it. Nothing more than that. Furry Raiders is a politically centered group that has been often described as a furry neo-Nazi group. This group had found itself in a lot of trouble, from small furry drama to criminal activity. I'd recommend keeping a distance from anyone who openly associates with the latter. God's Creatures. This is something that I don't know if it's still going or not, but basically, God's Creatures was a furry email list. It was described to be a Christian furry group and was started by a furry artist who goes by the name Angel Bear. This small email list system let the moderators have easy access to all the addresses, which allowed them to send monthly or weekly messages to everyone in the group. The group still exists, but I can't really find any info on whether or not they still use their old system to message each other, or if they'd move on to more up-to-date measures. I can't clearly point out why this term would be so deep in the iceberg when it's not even creepy, nor is it something I'd call worth talking about here. Maybe in level 1 or 2, but 4? I would have put carpet sample here instead. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. The word bear is something you'll find in the gay community. They use it to talk about big-sized older men who are also hairy. Some people find it attractive, but apart from the fact that they often wear beards and show off hairy chests, I don't see the connection between it and the fandom. Maybe a lot of subby furry gay guys like furry bears, I don't really know. HTH. Alright, this is one for the people who have been put in horny jail. The HTH series Hightail Hall is a game series that consists of 2 Flash games and a Unity engine prototype which seems to still be in the works. They were all erotic games with some lore also connected to them. This game series gathered quite a lot of attention from furries since its release, and they even created a Patreon page to help fund the development of their latest game. HTH is very well known among furries, and has influenced a lot of furry Flash games that people on E621 spent their lonely nights with up until the death of Flash not so long ago. Luckily, their Patreon is still very active to this day, and has over 400 patrons supporting it, so we are hopeful to see the return of HTH with a new game and probably see them make the jump from 2D to 3D. The Man Who Became a Dog. We really tried to nail this one down, to find where the title leads to, but our best guess is that it talks about this play in Spanish that talks about these 3 people who are discussing their own version of the story about the man who turned into a dog. Honestly, if you Google this, you'll get a lot of different results, and I could just put any of them and they could possibly be the right one. There is one where this man put himself into a dog kennel for close to 24 hours just to know how the dogs felt like being there. There are a bunch of crazy stories about people getting interviewed about how much they want to get surgery just to be able to look like a dog. Maybe they are referring to Boomer the dog, you know, the furry who got to go on the Dr. Phil and had a fursuit made of paper, and so on. Many different results keep popping up, and we were very unsure as to which one was the actual one on the iceberg image. Furry Peace. Yet another piece of furry fandom history. This one is quite interesting, and I quote, "Furry Peace is a group that was formed by Whitefire in 1998 as a response to the Burned Furs group. Their self-stated purposes were inclusion, each part of the fandom being as valid as any other, acceptance and tolerance, accept and tolerate ideas and concepts that we would not normally, responsibility, to think what effect your actions will have on others." Whitefire still holds these ideals to this day, though the group itself eventually died since the Burned Furs drama has been over for years. Kaiketsu Zorori. So it seems that this is actually a piece of lost media, and I quote, "Kaiketsu Zorori, or Incredible Zorori, is a popular Japanese children's book series created by Yutaka Hara and published by Poplar Publishing. The original books were also made into an animated feature-length film, anime, and comic. The first series, titled Kaiketsu Zorori, is primarily based on the children's book. There was a dub release only in the English-speaking parts of the Philippines. The only episodes to exist are low-quality ones on YouTube. I'm someone who enjoys watching videos related to lost media. Blame It on Jorg is one of my favorite YouTube channels of this genre. I do hope that people who like to hunt down these get to find the original English dub, and we get to see the full show translated again. It surely looks adorable." Gyaku Sean Sai Henry, the partially found furry fan game of the Ace Attorney game series. Alright, 2-in-1, this is fun. Another piece of lost media that has furries in it? Who knows? Maybe we could touch on this in future videos. Have I mentioned how much I enjoy watching these? Man, seeing how the influence of one video has helped people find lost media in the past kinda gives me the urge to go and to try and make one so as to help the furry fandom find some of its own. Now, about the game. It seems the information about it is kind of limited, and I quote, "It is a lost Ace Attorney fan game released in 2003. It was made by a company named Cheshire. It is unknown where or when this game was available to play or to download. The only available information, in English, comes from an entry on doujinshi.org. When you visit the link they provide, you'll find some screenshots of how the game was supposed to look like, the convention in which it launched, and also further information on the people who created it. After checking the page they have on Cheshire, it seems that this small company made several other games in the same furry art style. Their latest game was launched in 2019, which means that they are still active in making games. So I'd say that if anyone in the audience knows Japanese, our best bet would be to try to contact them through email. Who knows? Maybe we are lucky and get some info on it." As to why it is considered partially lost is because there are two different versions of the game currently available. The first one can be found on YouTube, since there is one person claiming to have the only available version of the full game, and also says that there isn't any other anywhere on the internet, yet didn't provide any download links and their channel seems to be dead by now. There are two questions here though. How did they get the game? And also, did they show the full game or just a part of it? The second piece of evidence comes from a user who actually had the game downloaded on his computer, but didn't know where they got it from since it had been resting in his download folder for a while. But they were nice enough to share the file with everyone else. This is where the questions arose. His version was different from the one we see on the YouTube video, thus opening a whole new chapter in this investigation. I'm excited to see where all of this leads to. Furry Renaissance. It was a term often mentioned by the user Zydex in some of his posts where he talks about how the furry fandom was slowly becoming mainstream, often comparing it to how anime also had a similar path in growth. While I do agree that the fandom has gone through changes and so on, the word Renaissance sounds a little bit too off in my opinion. It's not like we went through a complete 180-degree change in the few decades of the fandom existence. There have always been people who say the fandom was better back when, and people who think that some drastic changes are needed to improve it. But the majority of furries are like you and I. We don't really want to take sides. We join the fandom to have fun, not to throw names into the fire pit. Don't get me wrong here though, it doesn't mean I disagree with calling out people who did something horribly wrong. I will always think that if there is evidence of it happening, we should deal with it as soon as possible. As a last detail KhramChee wanted me to add before closing the video, when we were working on the script, we took our time to look into each individual mentioned here, even if they had the smallest involvement in one of the words on the iceberg. It's a bit hard to put this into a proper description, but when we got to Zydex, there was something off-putting about his online presence. All of the descriptions we would find were too exceedingly happy and cheerful and self-indulging to a point where it didn't look like a normal person's typing. Every single website we visited talked only about fabulous, overly decorated good deeds and praised this individual in a way that it sounded surreal. It must mean he is an amazing person, right? Well, we decided that since we were already very deep into this, we had to look more into it, and the results were just as expected. This oh so very nice persona we found on the pages that popped up on Google were all a cover-up of the whole ordeal behind the real Zydex. But hey, this video is already getting too long as it is, so let me know in the comment section down below if you'd like to see us discuss the story even further in a future video. Anyways guys, that wraps up the second video of 3 of us discussing the Furry Fandom Iceberg. How do you guys feel about what we discussed in this video? Would you guys say that you agree with the theories and beliefs of some of these things that we mentioned? Do you guys disagree? Let us know down in the comment section down below. Special thanks to KhramChee for all the help with the script writing of today's video. All of their social media will be linked down in the description down below. If you enjoy our content and want to further help out our channel, please make sure to donate to our Patreon as well as our Ko-fi. Remember to smash that like button, turn the notification bell, and subscribe all together. I have been SeetherCord, and we will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye, everyone.